There is now concrete proof millions of Christians in Nigeria are under sustained systematic attack by Islamists, say Global Christian Relief. Off the back of a tour of the region where they met the victims, visited burned down churches, and destroyed homes. Their CEO, Brian Orme, joins me now. What we've heard largely from the BBC is that reports of systematic targeting of Christians in Nigeria is what they say difficult to verify. But I think you guys have been able to obtain some proof that there is a targeting of Christians in Nigeria.
Nick, yeah, and thanks for having me. I do think the typical kind of fallback is that it's really difficult to get any kind of information, and it becomes more of a climate issue, a socioeconomic issue, land issue. But we have recently sent a team to the Middle Belt, and we've met with many believers, many churches, and heard from them directly to understand exactly what's happening in that Middle Belt area. And everything that we received was very clear that this is a religiously motivated act of violence against the church there.
And so could you go a little bit deeper into what that looks like?
Yeah, it follows a kind of a prescribed template where the attackers attack at night. The extremists target churches. They often also target the pastors' homes, and the pastors' homes are typically like the kind of the central hub for the Christian community. They're the taxi drivers, the counselors, the people who distribute the food when it's needed, things like that as well too. So they attack the houses of the pastors, attack the churches. They'll often pull all the things together in the middle of the church, burn it, even defecate inside of it. And this has been a template that's happened time and time across many of the villages that we met, the villages that we visited rather, and the people that we met with. And again, even hearing the religious slogans yelled, there's no room for Christians, you need to leave or convert, things like that are the consistent messages across all the villages that we met with in the Middle Belt.
See, the Nigerian government's narrative is that this is the Fulani herders. This is actually just a land war. But then I imagine that they wouldn't be targeting churches that way. They would just take the land.
That's the way that we see this, is that if there was a strict land-only issue, there would be some sense of negotiation. There would be some other tactics that would be used. But this is pure violence meant to eradicate Christian communities is what we see on the ground. And again, we're not saying that there aren't other people that are, again, caught up in this too, and there's other Muslims as well too. And I think we're really clear to say this isn't a strictly Christian versus Muslim issue, because there's many Muslims who live in the region. It's a Christian versus extremist issue, and these extremists are coming in, targeting Christians, trying to eradicate them from the land and take it over.
So the north of Nigeria is predominantly Muslim, the south is more Christian. You're saying this is happening in the Middle Belt. So has this come down from the north?
It has. So in the northern region, we know it's clear that Boko Haram, Islamic State of West Africa province, those are all trying to, again, dominate that area, control it, wipe out Christians. We've met with believers, many who've escaped attacks. I've met personally with many women who've been abducted by Boko Haram or married to fighters, had to escape, harrowing stories as well too, and deeply traumatic stories as well. But it's really fascinating in Nigeria, where you have one of the largest Christian populations in the world and one of the largest Muslim populations in the world, split between the south and the Christian, that's predominantly Christian, the north that's predominantly Muslim, and you have this middle belt and a seam. And this is the seam that's really getting, it's just kind of, it's erupting right now as well too. And again, it's from, again, it's hard to tell exactly all the things that are going on, but these radical Fulanis, many of them have been radicalized, we believe, by the north, and what we hear from Boko Haram and others, and have been pushed down to take over this land, eradicate Christians. And again, it's very clear to us that is the narrative. And again, it's very hard to get information, across Nigeria. And like I said, it's very, even to verify it, as a journalist. And that's why we sent a team there to go into the Plateau State, to meet with pastors, to meet with others who've been part of or have been victim of these attacks, to hear what's happening firsthand.
And are you able to tell me some of those kind of personal stories so people can get a real picture of what that's like?
Yeah, so there's one pastor that our team met with, and he was, the noise and the attacks happened at night. Him and his wife both ran to hide. They were thinking that the security forces would be there to help them and protect them, and they weren't. For whatever reason, they just disappeared. And so they hid in the goat stable, and they heard the gunshots, and they heard people going from house to house. There were 9 people killed just in that pastor's house as he and his wife were hiding out in the goat stable, goat barn as well too. And so it's devastating to hear that. Another story, of a pastor and a wife who left, and a pastor who went back to say, like, I've got to see if there's any others left. And I know this is my community. If I don't preach to this village, who do I preach to? God has called me to this. So he went back, and unfortunately, he was chased down by the radicals, ran up a hill, was shot and killed. And we spoke with his widow, and just the faith that he had to go back, but also just the devastating loss of his life as well, too, along with many others in their village.
You mentioned security forces there. Is it a case that they're not present because they don't have the means, or is it more that they don't really seem to be too bothered?
It's a really challenging thing to dig into this. From what we've heard, and again, these are things that they're very difficult to verify, is that they could potentially be paid off by the militants as well to move out of the way, knowing that they are, again, a small force against a larger force too. So there's little strength that they might have to protect in those areas. But we've heard it multiple times where these security forces have not done the job of protecting these Christian villages.
And when these people are driven out of their villages, where do they go? Are they in camps or?
Yeah, there's multiple routes that they often take, but the first step is to try to find a safe spot to go further south, find a safe spot, and to again, many of them live for months, on hilltops or in rocky formations in really unbearable conditions until they can make it to a place that's safe. It might be an internally displaced people camp, which again, we work in many of these IDP camps, and Josh and around that area as well too. And you hear so many of the traumatic stories, that have been happening not just in this last year, but in the last decade, where extremists have eradicated Christian villages. They've fled, they've lost loved ones, they've gone through traumatic violence, and they've escaped. And now they're in these IDP camps where they need resources, they need hope, they need trauma counseling, they need, again, for us, Bibles, things that will give them that encouragement to stay strong in their faith.
And there are reports of forced marriages, abductions. Have you heard anything similar?
Yes, I have. So, meeting with a woman named Safaratu, she was abducted in her camp, and again, went through some really devastating things, losing some children in that attack as well. And she was taken in and basically passed from fighter to fighter for over 2 years. And again, asking her, sitting with her in this IDP camp and saying, what gave you the strength to survive, to be in this situation? And they forced her to pray Muslim prayers, to wear the hijab, and to basically go through all the motions. And she said, as she was doing that, she was praying to Jesus, but she knew that her life was on the line, that she needed to go through all these motions, even for her kids' survival, because they were there as well with her. And she basically said that what got me through was every single day I thought of something that I could be grateful to God about, and I gave thanks to God for that thing and tried to focus on that blessing rather than to focus on all the violence and evil and wickedness that was around. And fortunately for her, there was an infighting that happened, and she was able to escape at night with a few of her children and a few of the other women. They crawled on the ground to get through that and traveled for 3 days, not knowing if they would be recaptured, until they finally found someone who helped them and got them to a safe space.
A lot of the media, as I said when I introduced you to our viewers, has either been dismissive or have said, it's very difficult to verify any of these claims. You have come out, you've done a piece, you've reported from Nigeria. Have you had a lot of take up in the media?
We've had some. I think it's one of those issues where we'd love for it to be a lot more, and even it's definitely trending in the news. Even President Trump sending bombs in coordination with the Nigerian government into some the northern state to attack an ISIS militant camp. And there's been a lot more talk about what's happening here. And again, for us, it's really it's critical because it's our Christian family, and so we believe it's our conviction to stand up for them. And it's one of the largest Christian populations in the world. And so what happens in Nigeria reshapes the global church. And so it's our calling to be a part of that. But we feel like there needs to be more. There needs to be more attention, more focus on what's happening. And we're thankful for the recent, others who've spoken up, like President Trump and Nicki Minaj and even Bill Maher, to bring this issue to the forefront. But it's been going on for over a decade. And it's something that we need to draw attention to now, or the future church in Nigeria could, again, in the northern and middle belt areas, could be eradicated.
Why do you think there isn't more interest?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time on this, Nick, to think through, and I think there's a few reasons. And one is because I think the media here, in the West, when we see things that are happening in Africa, oftentimes we can look away from it easily or think that's so far away and it's distant or it doesn't. And if I'm really kind of even speaking to like the base level, if it's not political, if there's not power involved, if there's not wealth involved, there's not an advantage for us to share this story, oftentimes that story doesn't get shared. And that's a very skeptical view of it, but I feel like that's partly what we see in this is that there's not incredible power sway that's going to help us with that narrative. And yet I think it's now gaining momentum to say, yeah, this is our Christian family, and we need to draw our attention to this. There needs to be something that we can do. And again, we believe that every Christian in the West can stand up to pray for them. The first step is just to know what's happening and to care about it, and to care about it as our family in Nigeria and not to look away. And again, that doesn't mean we don't care about others who are swept up in this violence too, because we definitely do. And know that it's not just Christians, it's other people who are caught up in this collateral damage as well too. And so we're calling on the government to provide that protection that the country desperately needs to survive.
Al Jazeera has dismissed it as what they call propaganda, and that's a quote. So what would you respond to that?
Yeah, I would say it's so hard. For us, it's one of those things where we're seeing it on the ground. And again, I've been there multiple times, and I've met with people across the Middle Belt towards the north, and I've seen the burned churches, talk with pastors, again, talk with women and children who've been through unbelievable trauma, and hearing their stories, they all line up. So to me, seeing it firsthand, talking to firsthand, that there's no reason for someone who's in an IDP camp, who's lost everything, to give some kind of false narrative, with this. And so to me, it's the overwhelming evidence of personal firsthand accounts that we see that this does not make it propaganda whatsoever. And to me, it breaks my heart to hear that, because I do feel like this pulls away any kind of power and narrative that really is the focus of what's happening, to help us, again, build some type of system of change and provide the needs and the collaboration to the government to give that protection that's needed. So it's unfortunate that it's ever called propaganda. And I understand that, again, it's hard to verify, but again, that's why we sent a team to do that, to bring this credible sourcing to the forefront, so that people could, again, hold this up and say, okay, if you call this propaganda, what else do we do to make it true?
And what's the reaction been like on the ground to Donald Trump's strikes in northern Nigeria? Do people feel like the US is giving them a bit of hope, or do they think that it will help? Do you think it will cow the Fulanis?
Yeah, Nick. So I haven't had the chance to speak with our partners on the ground yet, since Christmas, just a few days ago, to find out. But I am eager to find out what their perspective is. And in my perspective would be very quickly is that it's, again, like our role is really to support our Christian family in Nigeria. So it's not, our role is not bombing, our role is not, fighting. Our role is supporting and empowering, equipping, but also drawing attention and awareness to this. So again, thankful that there's awareness, and there's actually some momentum with the U.S. calling for Nigeria to be on the list of countries of particular concern. That's a critical thing to move forward that hasn't happened in the last number of years. So I think things like that give us hope, but also the sense of like this, one bombing is not going to change the structure of protection in the system in Nigeria. It's going to be a long haul effort to really think about systematic changes, both within the structure, the protection, the way that Nigeria kind of leads the charge to give protection to all of its citizens as well. So again, I think it's a small little glimmer of like, oh, it's getting attention. This is action, but it's also the sense of like the issue is so large scale that we need much more than that in the future.
And is there anything in specific that you guys are calling on Western governments to do, or the Nigerian government to do?
Yeah, again, we're calling on U.S. officials. We're asking people to contact their congressmen to make this a highlighted effort, that we would enter talks with and put the pressure on Nigeria to take steps that will really, again, recognize the issue, move past some of these old narratives that don't hold up, and actually see what can be done to provide protection and give protection to more Christians in the Middle Belt especially. So again, I think there's great things that we can do, just put that pressure so that the talks within the Capitol Hill and the world stage get deeper and deeper and more substantial will be critical. Again, our main goal is that the Nigerian government would look at this and again continue to move in the direction of providing protection for all of its citizens.
When I've done other interviews on this subject, there's been a lot of accusations that either the elements within the Nigerian government are aiding the Fulanis, or at least turning a blind eye. Did you hear anything from people on the ground that you spoke to about kind of government complicity?
Yeah, I will say this, Nick. I think it's difficult, and I want to be very careful as we talk about what's happening. You know, I mean, with it, like we're very focused on trying to say that this is what these are the sources we can hold up and see and get verified proof of. I think that's the hard part, is that steps into definitely the subjective narratives where there's a lot of things of what's happening with the Nigerian government, and we hear talk about it, but I would just say that we've not been able to credibly bring anything to bear with that. And so again, at this point right now, we're trying to again come alongside the Nigerian government to encourage them, see how we can help, see how we can equip, see how we can bring the stories to bear so that they give it more weight. But it is, again, the narratives are out there, but we're not able to verify them.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. Is there a way that people can donate?
Yes. Yeah, if you go to gcrelief.org, on our homepage, you'll see, you know, we're focusing on our Nigerian family right now with rapid response. And so you could go to that link and please, you know, number one, pray for your Christian family in Nigeria, pray for their protection, pray for their guidance and their strength. But two, you can actually have a valuable part in that action by giving today. And we would even encourage you to be like a monthly giver. That's the best way to contribute for the long haul. And you can see that on our website on the homepage. You can go to a frontline partner and just click on the give there, and it'll walk you through those steps very clearly. But I think that's one of the best ways to have a long-term investment in the church in Nigeria. And again, in persecution and for our Christian family around the world today.